Title: The Eagle and the Red Star, A Tale of the Polish-Soviet War. Historical fiction, Polish-Soviet War, 1919 to 1921. Prologue: The thin line between victory and defeat. March 1919, Eastern Poland. The wind howled across the frozen plains as Captain Jan Kowalski adjusted his grip on his rifle. The war had barely begun, yet already he had seen enough death to last a lifetime. "Hold the line," his commander shouted. But the Red Army was coming. Through the snow, a sea of Bolshevik soldiers advanced, their red banners billowing in the cold air. Jan took a deep breath. Poland had been reborn after over a century of oppression. He would not let it be lost again. Chapter 1: A Nation Reborn. November 1918, Warsaw, Poland. After 123 years of partition, Poland had returned to the map of Europe. Marshal Józef Pilsudski led the new republic, but its borders were still uncertain. To the east, the Bolsheviks sought to spread their revolution. Poland would have to fight for its survival. Jan Kowalski, a former soldier of the Austro-Hungarian army, returned home to find his city celebrating independence. But he knew peace would not last. War was coming. Chapter 2: The Eastern Front. Spring 1919, Vilnius, Lithuania. Polish troops advanced into territories held by the Bolsheviks. Jan, now a lieutenant, led a platoon through the dense forests of Belarus. Every village they liberated brought cheers from the locals, but the Red Army was never far behind. One night, his unit was ambushed. The gunfire echoed in the dark. Jan barely escaped, pulling his wounded friend, Pyotr Nowak, to safety. "We have to hold Vilnius," Pyotr whispered. "We can't let them push us back." Jan nodded. But the Soviets had other plans. Chapter 3: The Red Offensive. Summer 1920, Kiev, Ukraine. Poland's forces had pushed deep into Ukraine, capturing Kiev. Victory seemed close. But then the Soviet counteroffensive began. Jan's unit was ordered to hold a key bridge. The Red Army attacked with overwhelming numbers. The battle raged for hours. One by one, his men fell. A bullet grazed Jan's shoulder, but he kept fighting. Then the order came: retreat. Poland's dream of controlling Ukraine was collapsing. Chapter 4: The Fight for Lwów. September 1920, Lwów, Poland. With the Red Army advancing, the city of Lwów became a crucial battleground. Jan and his men dug trenches along the outskirts, preparing for a Soviet siege. Civilians joined the fight, armed with whatever they could find. Among them was Anna Zielinska, a nurse-turned-resistance fighter. She and Jan shared stolen moments in the chaos, but the war left no time for love. As the Soviets bombarded the city, Jan knew Lwów would not fall without a fight. Chapter 5: The Miracle on the Vistula. August 1920, Warsaw, Poland. The Red Army reached the gates of Warsaw. The world expected Poland to fall. But Pilsudski had a plan. Jan and his soldiers stood ready along the Vistula River, waiting for the Soviet attack. The battle began at dawn. Polish forces struck the enemy's flanks, cutting them off. The Soviets panicked. What seemed like certain defeat turned into a crushing Polish victory. Jan collapsed to his knees as the enemy fled. Against all odds, Poland had won. Chapter 6: Shadows of the War. October 1920, borderlands of Poland and Belarus. Though the war was nearing its end, the conflict continued in the eastern regions. Bands of Bolshevik fighters refused to surrender, launching guerrilla attacks. Jan led one final mission into enemy territory, hunting down a notorious Soviet commander, Sergei Volkov. The battle was brief but brutal. When the smoke cleared, Volkov lay dead, and Jan knew the war was truly ending. Epilogue: A Nation Secured. March 1921, Riga, Latvia. A peace treaty was signed. Poland's borders were secured. The war was over. Jan returned home, carrying the scars of battle. He had fought for his country's future and won. As he looked at the Polish flag waving in the wind, he whispered, "Never again." But deep down, he knew war would return one day. The end.